chiming, so it's 7 o'clock, and it's 7 o'clock. It's time for the Sunday evening webinar. And we're glad that you're all here, and there are more people joining us. So without further ado, Mr. Laurie.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being on here. I thought I would start, I'll start with our agenda. First of all, that's to welcome everybody. Second, I wanted to read a little story or give you excerpts from a little story of something I received today. Then I thought I'd give you my updates, answer the questions from last week, and then open it up to the floor. How's that sound?
Perfect.
That sounds good, because that's what we're going to do.
Well,
Rick Corella and Ray Graneri are with me for support and most of the correct answers, and I'll take it away. So thank you again, everybody. This is a really useful, I think it's a great and useful tool to share information. Today at about 4 o'clock on a real dreary Sunday, I received an incredible letter from a parent. And I'm not going to use names in here, but it was with respect to 4 of her children and 2 of our schools. And I just wanted to tell you in this 2-page letter what she reflected to me, that she was just so impressed with her child's teacher, who immediately contacted all of the parents through the class dojo, sending them warm thoughts and instructions on how to use all of the systems. And that weekly she sends several messages to the students just to check on them. And when there's a question, she always contacts the parent and the student back promptly with information. The younger children at the same school happened to be pre-K children, and they cried when they first heard their schools were closed because they were devastated and that they weren't going to be able to see their teacher. During this COVID crisis, the child's birthday came up, and the teacher made a surprise visit to their home, giving the child air hugs and goodie bags filled with books and a nice happy birthday wish bag. That was followed by the teaching assistant showing up at the home, who also brought birthday goodies. The older son needed more materials, and their teacher went to the store and bought learning materials, twice delivering the learning packets filled with workbooks, candy, maps, pretend money, coloring supplies, and a handwritten letter with a return envelope so that the child could write back to the teacher. The parent writes that the kids love and look forward to walking to a school every day to get their lunches because the cafeteria staff is so kind to them. It was just a beautifully written letter, and I just took a few excerpts out of it to show everyone the power of what can be done even during these challenging times. So I'm really, really pleased to receive that. I shared it with the principal, the teachers that were mentioned, and the Board of Education. So thank you to all of you who are doing the same thing. That just happened to come to me in the form of a letter. Let me begin by going through our general statements of where we are. When we embarked on this journey 5 weeks ago, it's nearly impossible to believe that it was 5 weeks ago today when we started this journey, and we'd just be coming back probably from sunny Easter breaks, which were canceled this year, and relaxation. And we've worked very hard, all of us, for the last 5 weeks. We started with 4 goals in mind, and I try to rate the district, the team, everybody against how we're doing. And the first one was communication. We hope that we're not over flooding you with information, if that's could be such a thing. We hope that we're not being repetitive. I worry about that, but we're trying to at least keep you up to date with everything we know. We recognize that sometimes our auto dialer call, sometimes it cuts off or double plays. It's something that Ray Graneri has been looking into and works on. We really think it's a function of the time that's called and the amount of calls that are going out on certain trunk lines over the phone system. We don't think that there's anything wrong internally. We've had what they call a ticket out on it, and they can't find anything. So we think it's just a function of overuse at certain times. We'll try to keep that call to the same time every day, but we acknowledge that some days and sometimes the message will either cut out or replay. Next, food. We are over 115,000 meals. You know that means that's how many meals are in a bag, and each one is a double bag, and that we're doing it 6 days a week, or meals 6 days a week, more than any other district anywhere that I can find in the food plans that we have to submit to the state. We have 2 sponsors that are looking to provide us with money to do dinners. We're hoping to do one out in LaSalle and one downtown, one night of dinner each, like maybe a Monday night will be dinner night at maybe 2 schools. We're still trying to put the finishing touches on that plan. M&M were the next things, and that was medicine and mental health. And I think we've pretty well handled the medicine in the first week or 2. Mental health is best exhibited by that letter I just read to you. As much as the learning packets and the learning targets are important, the outreach through whatever system staff is using is really critical and really important, because no matter how strong you might be or tough you might be or fortified you might be, a call from someone to check on you is always appreciated and always good. And finally, learning targets and learning packets and instruction and whatever you'd like to call it. We've really overcome a lot of challenges early. We're in a really good groove with learning. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It probably never will be perfect during this crisis. But wow, have we come a long way. I want to say a lot about learning tonight and try and answer your questions with the team here. But the first thing I want to say is that we've come so far with our now job embedded learning technology practices that when we get back to school, and we will get back to school at some point, we can't lose this technology, this web page, this Office 365 learning momentum that we have to help kids be reinforced, to help kids who the traditional school day isn't always successful for, and to reach parents and kids in a reinforcement way. I'm not going to let that happen. I hope you join me in that sentiment. So let's start with that. Let's start with learning, and let's just start with grading right now as I go through some of the questions from last week. Tomorrow afternoon, the team that's here with me, we're going to meet with our Niagara Falls teachers, leaders, and we're going to talk about grading. And I would just like you to think about the struggles and the conversations as professionals that we had with APPR, and the fact that it's very difficult to tie a student's test scores to a teacher's performance. And you know, there's many parts of that I totally agree with. So if we think in those terms and use that kind of thinking, let's just think about learning and grading for the sake of learning. Kids getting a new concept, kids learning something, albeit in a very difficult and different way. Let's just think about how much learning we can push out between now and the end of the school year. And let's put grading and deadlines and artificial rules that we create aside. Let's put it aside and just think, what can we do to help kids continue to learn something during this time? So that guides my thinking when I'm going to be a huge advocate for just a pass-fail or pass-incomplete system. It's just about learning the concept. That doesn't mean you don't want to check for understanding, have virtual exit tickets, do all those good practices that we know you need to in teaching and instruction. But let's really focus our thinking around how can we use the tools and the distance to best help kids learn. So tonight, I'm not going to get into, do I give a grade every 3 days? Do I give a grade every 6 minutes? That'll come out in a very didactic, specific sheet that we'll work on all this week, so that by the end of the week or by next Sunday, we'll be able to post that on the screen. Your administrators will have it and share it with you, and we'll know exactly what to do. We have a lot of good, smart people who are researching best practices and ways to do it. I know there's a technological component to it. That's why Mr. Graneri will be part of the team, and how we record that and share it back with parents. But I want to put everybody's mindset around, let's just think how we can get kids to learn a new concept, 2 new concepts, 3 new concepts. Not worry about that Friday's testing day or Thursday is assessment day. Let's worry about learning. Having said that, let me jump into questions and responses from last week. I'm going to take a big one head on, and that's YouTube. And I'll start with the way we started last week, and then I'll ask Ray to jump in where I am maybe not as clear or missing points. So remember, we talked a lot last week about Education Law 2D. That's the guiding law. It is a law that we have to adhere to for the privacy of children, students, adults, everyone. So everything we do has to revolve around Law 2D. When they conceived that law, they never thought of a COVID crisis. They thought of the evolving technology, but boy, it certainly applies now. And you know, rightly, we learned our Zoom lesson, I think. We could all tell horror stories about Zoom, and we know now that it's a good adult-to-adult tool, but so is YouTube to a degree. When you're in district and you're using YouTube, it has some natural filters and ways to keep the content appropriate. That's the bottom line. When you're in district and you're using it, we have a modicum of control over it. The minute you take YouTube out of the district highway and put it onto new streets and avenues that we're not used to, those are the streets and avenues of the computers that live out in the world, you start to lose your control. You start to lose the content that you're able to manage. So it's really important that we all respect and recognize that this content filtering is a protection for you. To that end, I'm not going to go around or ask Ray, because I couldn't do it, to go around and wipe off YouTube off of everybody's screen. I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things when you're, if and when you choose to use it. And that's just to use it very sparingly. That's to use it with the conscious act of knowing that what you produce could end up anywhere in the world and be altered. And that would be a real difficult thing to have to answer to. It is a good tool, but remember, when you leave the safe streets of the district pathways, those things can happen. I'm not going to pull it off. I'm not going to throw down a hammer and mandate and say it can't be used. I'm going to throw the caution out there that you need to be very, very, very careful with YouTube. Know who your audience is. Know what the code of conduct is. Know what the AUP policy is. Be very, very careful, and be very, very sparingly when you think you need to use it. And when you do, realize that it's best to create your own videos and to do that internally, so that you're not running the risk of Education Law 2D or your content being altered, changed, or incorrectly placed out there. So that's kind of my warning on YouTube, and that's the position the district's going to take under my direction. But Ray, is there anything else that you'd like to say about it?
No, maybe just one thing. It really, it's not, the issue is not originating from your content, although it's coming from most likely a recommendation on your teacher webpage. I think where we get into trouble in district occasionally, and certainly outside of district, is the YouTube's their video suggestion. So you're starting off with very appropriate, very useful content, and a half hour later, you can find yourself, or the student can find themselves in trouble. So really, that's just the only clarifying piece. It's not your content. You're well intended. YouTube is a tremendous resource. Nobody's downloading manuals to fix their lawnmower anymore. You're watching someone else do it, and that's how you learn. It's the related video suggestions where a half hour later you can get into trouble. That's what makes it so tough.
Thanks. So we kind of have to put YouTube aside with those caveats. Okay, use it please sparingly. Use other tools to describe what you're doing. Realize that as you go out into the world, things could change. So let me now run through a series of questions from last week to try and give you clarity and answers, and then we'll move on to new questions. will summer school be digital? We don't know. We don't know. Each day and each extension that the governor puts on, I think summer school gets more and more difficult to conceive. And I personally don't think we've had a robust elementary learning program for the past couple of years. And unless this crisis really subsides, it's going to be hard to conceive that we're going to bus young children sitting very close to each other into a school where they're going to sit very close to each other and eat together, that we'll be having, there's a lot of promise. Right now, I think summer school's 50-50, if I had to put a percentage on it. Now, at the high school level, it might be different. That's where we might consider some type of digital learning if we can't get high school kids back in. But I really wonder and question whether we will have, the ability or the need to, under these circumstances, bring younger children in. Not that high school kids are any more averse to getting COVID, but it's just harder to manage and control some of their behaviors. When I was asked today, what we could figure out ways to separate kids in a classroom, in a lunchroom, even in a hallway. What I don't know is how we would ever bus 500 kids into school, 5,000 kids to school to get to school. And those buses are very tight. So I'm starting to wonder and worry about summer school, but that's okay. We'll be ready. BOCES, high school students who have BOCES classes. BOCES has applied for a waiver from those classes that have mandatory seat time hours like cosmetology and nursing. Stick with your BOCES, or tell your students to stick with their BOCES teachers to follow the written work and the packet work necessary. Something that occurred this week when we really pushed out the new learning packets is that parents told us that they had technology in their homes and that they didn't need anything and that they could do it. Well, immediately upon pushing out that technology, what we found was, and Ray found it a lot more than anyone, was that some of the technology that the parents thought was ready and right for this learning was very outdated, very old, very slow, very poor connectivity, and they became very frustrated. And what they asked us to do was to have a mobile help desk, or have some of Ray's staff go into their homes to fix computers. And that's just something that we're not equipped to do right now. So the question was about packets, written packets, and my direction to try to lessen those written packets. That direction still stands, but parents and families that need them should be able to have those available. And they should mirror what's on the website or what's on the websites, but they don't have to be word for word. The point is getting the learning objective and target out there. And it may be a less dense packet that would be copied off. And so it's okay for parents to ask for learning packets, even if they say they had home computers. Pre-K 4, Pre-K 3. Here's what's going on with that. Because we're postponing and only postponing sister schools 1 year till September of 2021, September 2021, we had to recreate new Pre-K 3 and Pre-K 4 applications because we're going to have them in more schools. For instance, Abbott was left off because Abbott was going to be a 3 to 6 school. Now Abbott will maintain their Pre-K 3 and 4 classes for another year. So we have to reprint the Pre-K 3 and Pre-K 4 applications. We'll get those out very soon, like next week, the end of next week. We'll get them into schools. We'll leave them at the public library, places where people can go to pick things up. Maybe a restaurant or two will help us with that. They're coming out. They'll be coming out. We'll have plenty of time. We'll give parents extended hours to register here in central office, because if they're first time to the school district, they have to come in and physically register. If they were in a Pre-K 3, they'll roll up. But we'll give extended hours for parents once this crisis subsides, and we'll have a new application coming out. Remember, we have over 450 4-year-old seats and 250 3-year-old seats. The same number of classes will continue. We think, and this is premature to say because we'll finish this week, but we think that we'll be able to house all pre-K3 classes inside our school walls. And our friends at Divine Mercy won't need to use an adjunct place. We think we've been able to do that, but give me the rest of the week to figure that out. Tomorrow morning, we're meeting with our special education central office chairs. I want to get an assessment of how we're doing with annual reviews. Anecdotally, I'm hearing good things. I'm hearing that they're going well. I hope you're finding cooperation and collegiality in doing them. Our school psychologist took on a heavy load there. The next phase for discussion tomorrow after I receive that answer will be how are we going to handle initial referrals? These are referrals that were submitted prior to the crisis, but haven't been acted upon. One of the big questions I'm going to ask is, in those referrals, there has to be standardized testing, and we have to feel comfortable that we can make if necessary and warranted, a special ed placement using teletesting or using anecdotal records. I'm not sure how I feel about that, and I want to talk to our special ed team more. That's the only way we can get a waiver from the 60-day requirement to fulfill initial special ed referrals, if we don't feel that remotely we can test children. So in some cases, we may have enough progress monitoring to do it. In other cases, we may not. So that's where that stands. Next, can a student repeat this year? You know, my position has always been since the beginning that we're moving kids ahead. Can a student repeat? If that was contemplated at the 20-week mark and communication was in place and a teacher, parent, and principal have been having conversations, most notably in a lower grade, I will want to review those, but it is possible. It is possible. Let me just diverge from that question and tell you my feeling on retention. It's clear that it doesn't work, and we're about growth. From the little time, the 6 years I spent at the high school, and the knowledge that knowing that the ultimate purpose of the district is graduation, as well as building great citizens, etc. What I know is that the age a child enters high school will be very predictive of whether he or she graduates. So it's always been clear that if a child enters Niagara Falls High School at age 13 or 14, they're going to sail through high school as long as they keep up their good work. Child enters at 15 at Niagara Falls High School, there's probably a 50-50 chance that the child will get through high school. If a child enters high school at 16, 17, or 18, it's one in a 100 that they'll graduate. So I'm always I'd ask you about retention to remember that the goals are growth and the goals are completing high school and the requirements there, and that retention only adds years to a child's life earlier on than high school, and that becomes a very big problem to get out of it. Suggested hours of work. I think lessons, and I'll go from the high school level, lessons from a teacher or a class should be no longer than 25 to 30 minutes. That's about enough for a class now, remotely. I'm thinking 2 to 2.5 hours a day is, especially even for a high school student, that's pretty much the max. I know there are higher level courses, higher demanding courses, college courses, AP courses that demand more. But once you start getting into 2.5 hours a day of schoolwork, I think it becomes counterproductive. Next question, what happens if September comes and the crisis isn't over? Will we return through this method, and will we get paid again? The answer is probably yes, we'll return to this message. If we're working this way, you'll get paid. So that's my answer to that question. Future training, let me address that now. We've had two really great weeks of training, both on Office 365 and then on teacher websites through Blackboard. This week we'll start our third round of training, but the training is going to look a little different this week. We are going to slow down on a lot of new concepts and really focus, especially with the Blackboard website training, on having teachers become more skilled in knowing their audience, knowing the functionality of the receiver, more clicking and less scrolling, better navigation strategies, more organized concepts, and the better uses of tools. Those are going to be the focus that we're going to hit on this week of training. I'm looking at Mr. Granary, and it's probably going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It might be Wednesday, Thursday. Same setup, 9 and 1 o'clock. We had over 330 people join those trainings. Realize that the Blackboard teacher websites are going to be more about the receiving end of the website, the two-way communication, the tools, and the functionality, so that we become more skilled. We want to kind of call a timeout on new learning and really get a little bit deeper with the previous learning. 365 Teams continues to be just an absolutely great way to teach and learn. More training on that as well. The dates are still to be determined. That's why we ask you to keep looking at your email, because we'll pop those dates out there. More framework work, more tiered levels of OneNote and Teams, things like that will become more and more the operation of Office 365. So the statement is yes, more training is coming. It'll be more of a functionality approach, but it'll be in both Office 365 and in Blackboard teacher websites. I spoke to you about grading and learning. That will be coming out this week. You know where my head is on that. It's about learning and seeing if we can't get concepts out there more. We want to put deadlines that we create, that we impose, that we set. They can be changed. This is not the normal course of work. Let's just think about learning. And I talked about the time. Let me answer just one more question, and then I'm going to go through my chunked out work, and then I'll take questions. This week we had a little bit of clarification necessary on special area teachers in the elementary, and we purposefully set this up this way, not to overburden elementary teachers or make the classroom teacher any more important or special or discount or diminish the special area teacher. When we set it up, our thinking, right or wrong, and I think it was right, was to help the people on the receiving end, the parent and student. And it's called, in my terms, knowing your audience. And it isn't about divisions of labor here. It's about knowing your audience and knowing that our elementary students, a good majority of them, not all of them, will go to one place, one-stop shopping, and they'll go to their teacher. Doesn't mean their special area teachers are less important. It just means people will go to the teacher of record, their classroom teacher in elementary, and use them as the pivot point to get all of their learning from. That was why. Ray, not we, because I didn't do any of this, Ray received hundreds of phone calls this week about just that issue, and it was an easy message to say, go to your classroom teacher and go from there. It wasn't that we wanted to give them more work. It wasn't that we wanted to diminish anyone. It was just an easier point of reference than sending them to multiple locations for multiple links. So I want to put that question to bed for the evening and that response to bed for going forward. As I tell everyone in central office, we did not have a playbook or a plan book for this crisis. It's my visual of this whole time has been this bridge. I don't know why this sticks in my head, but it's like this bridge we build. We're able to stand on it, but we're only putting 1 or 2 slats in front of us. Sometimes we get 3 slats in front of us and it's good. But if you put 4 or 5 slats in front of you, sometimes slats 1 and 2 don't hold up well. So we're taking things methodically, slowly, trying to be inclusive, even though from time to time I have to be a little bit more direct in my answers and get things done that way. Let me look at my plan book here, and then we'll go to questions. So I had 7 topics, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Make sure, here it is, and this plan book will end this Friday. Let's check and see how we're doing. Make sure a good web page, a good quality web page, or Office 365 was up and running. That was 1 and 2. I think we're hitting those targets. I think we're hitting them pretty well. That this week when we do our functionality work in our workshops, will get even better. Two-way communication between home and student. I think we've clicked that off this week. We still need more practice at it. We still need more development on it, but we're on the path. Work distribution for 2 weeks, not to exceed 2 weeks. It's out there. That's great. Niagara Falls High School and the teachers there have done a really good job with AP and college credit support. I'm finding and hearing that we've made those leaps because of the skill of those teachers and the relationships with the students. That's good. Next, the distribution of technology, content filtering, AUP, and the technology collection process. Again, all in Mr. Granieri's bailiwick. We have distributed the 18 hotspots that we have. We have 15 more coming in. We'll have those out where and when requested by a principal. We have requests for 80 computers, and we have 86 computers, and we have 40 of them configured. We've deployed 20 of them. We're moving forward on that. By this time next week, I'm looking for us to have that matched up. For everyone that's asked, they'll have their technology. And finally, begin annual reviews. I think we've really nailed that one. We have 5 days left in order to hit those targets that I've arbitrarily set, and then we will move forward to the following week's work that talks about the collection of work, the progress monitoring of work, how to record work, celebrations, and assessments if appropriate. That's the look to come. So today was only 33 minutes of constant talking, and we did all right. What do you got, guys? Questions?
Hey, can I jump in real quick with one because it kind of deals with the pre-K that you had mentioned.
Yep.
When these registration forms come out, and you had mentioned that it would be available at the libraries and other businesses that are open, the essential businesses, will there be some way for the parents to email them in?
Sure. Boy, if we keep practicing this technology, I'll even be able to do that, Gene. Yeah, we'll make sure that as soon as we're ready, we'll put those up on the. It's a really good idea, Gene. We'll put them up on our website. We'll have. I know Ray and the team will be able to figure it out, and they can. We should be there. It's a really good call to action. We should be there, right? So the answer is yes.
Okay.
We just need to finish the pre-K3 one because Mr. Corella and Ms. Massaro were setting the classrooms this week, and I just want to look it over one more time, and then we'll have that application out.
Thank you. Raj?
Question, kind of not related to anything stated so far, but it has to do with the construction going on at Maple Avenue School. Will that affect the early voting? I guess the
no. No, I walked Maple on Friday. So every day I'm going to try and walk 4 schools. I walked Maple, Hyde Park, Kelphus, Abbott, our 1170, and I think those are the schools I walked Friday. No, it won't affect voting. If we were to have to open school today or tomorrow, it would take them about a week to clean that up because it is quite dusty. Remember, Maple Avenue, Hyde Park, 79th, and Mann are getting air conditioning, and the contractors are pretty far ahead, which is a good thing. They're already putting the piping in for the air conditioning, which is way further ahead than they'd ever been. And it's dusty there. I recognize that when I walk through, but we are entitled to a cleaning, I can't think of the word, but a really deep, top-notch cleaning that will do everything necessary so that it wouldn't look like anybody was there. But it won't affect voting. And remember, the voting is June 23rd for the presidential election. We still don't know when the school board voting is. We're still waiting to hear, even though I think, and I would guess, and if I was a betting person, I'd put money on it, it would be the same day, but that's not official.
Okay, Raj, you want to go again?
With the students that have borrowed laptops and hotspots, there's a way to guarantee that they stay on appropriate websites. Many know how to download filter avoiding apps. Are they going to be monitoring any of this within the district?
Yeah, that's always a challenge, and sometimes it does happen in district. What we did is we applied the same filtering appliance software as a client on these laptops we deployed. So it's the same appliance, the same filtering system, same rules, same categories. Instead of being deployed under the district umbrella, it's being deployed on a client that sits on the laptop that we deployed. That's the best tool we have to try to stop that from happening. But I can tell you that that is always a challenge of core browsers, UltraSurf, things like that they sometimes find their way in district, and we find a way to get them off, and then it shows itself again. But we're using the same tools that we do inside district and outside district, just in a different manner. And that's the best we can do right now, and it's fairly effective.
You mentioned that there were roughly 80 requests.
Right.
But these requests go through a vetting process. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, 86 high school requests. The high school administrators field out, ferret the requests out. They make decisions. They look at the child's schedule. They look at who it is. The principals then contact Ray. He first question is, do you have a hotspot? Do you not? Then he gets one of the computers that we talked about where we're getting them from, because we already have the replacements here. He then has his team put all the content filtering tools on it. He then gives it to the high school administrator, who calls the student in. They get their form warning of acceptable use. They sign it and they go. And those computers have to be returned. They have to be returned. So it's not just hey, come and pick this up. It's not that easy. So I'm challenging him by the end of this week to have those 86 out, and I'm sure we'll pick up a few more. Why haven't we done middle school and high school? Why haven't we done middle school and elementary? Don't you like them? I do like them. I just want to have a prioritized approach to this, and we prioritize working with the highest grades first and working our way back down. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Somebody asked, want to confirm. We submit 1 week at a time. Is that of work, especially since we have new information constantly coming?
Yeah.
Rick.
Yep. There are 3 ways to do it. They can push work out daily, which would work well online, but obviously it wouldn't for students who needed to pick up a hard copy packet. We began with telling teachers to put out work online, either for a full week or day by day or a few days at a time, whatever their preference was, and then to make sure that their packets were available each week. I believe it was on one of these webinars where someone asked Mr. Laurie if under certain circumstances they could put out work for a 2-week block. And at that time, Mr. Laurie said that if it was appropriate, he would endorse that, but for no more than 2 weeks.
Exactly correct. We did it 2 weeks ago. It wasn't last Monday, it was the week before. That's where we set exactly what Rick said up, day to day, by the week, 2 weeks, no more than 2 weeks. We need to stay fresh, current, and up to date. That really fortifies what kids are learning and kids are doing. So those are the parameters. Okay.
Will there be pre-K classes at Cataract in the fall?
Yes. Pre-K4 was already there. and we're contemplating a pre-K 3 there. We're contemplating it. Contemplating it means you're going to take me in a whole different direction here that I'm really upset about. You're taking me to the budget, which really is getting under my skin, because I listened to Governor Cuomo again today, and he proposed another $500 million worth of cuts. And Mr. Girizzo just ran in my office and said, "Oh, that isn't good." And I know it's not good. So we're still working in the context of making the budget work by having no layoffs or anything, no layoffs, only through attrition of retirements and no program cuts. But boy, if this guy keeps cutting, it's getting harder and harder to do this. So it's really getting harder to do this, really hard. And you know, I'm really angry because look at all the schools have done during this crisis. It's just you're taking me to a bad area here, but I'm going to get it off my chest. At a time when our youngest people need the most support, as evidenced by this webinar and all the other things we're doing, education is taking the largest hit of my 35-year career. It's just so counterintuitive that it's so lazy that they froze all of our foundation aid with promise to cut our foundation aid, which hurts poor small city school districts, AKA Niagara Falls, because we can't raise taxes, because we don't have the tax base to get it from, and because we don't have other good revenue sources, as opposed to our more affluent neighbors, during a time when kids need mental health and supports and education to catch up. The program is being, forced to make these decisions. Thanks. I feel better. Now, the answer is yes on pre-K 4 at Cataract. We're looking at putting a pre-K 3 there or 2. There was one at CEC, and I'd like to move that out of the CEC into Cataract. But I'm just hold on that. Please hold on that until I can get through this week, because that's not official yet.
Okay. Have the speech packets been distributed? Can you touch on what the expectations are for speech during this time?
Have they, Rick, they've been distributed?
They have.
The speech packets should have been distributed to the schools. We asked the administrators to call those students in elementary that receive speech to pick up their packet at their school and, go from there. Do you want to add something, Rick?
No, just that the only thing I would add is that we can't guarantee that every family that's been contacted has picked up a packet, but we're going to be discussing this week ways to get the work out to students with IEPs. The response rate for students with IEPs has been a little bit low, but we feel, and we're getting guidance from state ed, that we're obligated to take extra steps to make sure that they get their accommodation, well, I should say accommodated work, right, or special or work that aligns better with their IEP.
Right. Well, let me just say something about speech for a whole different webinar. It's giving me having time to think about things. I told you this many times. I am so impressed with the way our co-teaching model has worked this year. So impressed with it. So pleased with it. Felt like we made great strides, and that if we finished the year, we were going to set it to a new high and a new level for going into next year. I'm contemplating, in conversations with our central special ed office and Mr. Corella, more co-teaching with speech. So if you think about that, and please, I don't want to get into this tonight. This is a whole different webinar in staff development. But if you think about the premise of how our special ed teachers work in the classroom with general ed teachers, I think there's a lot of learnings we can make for speech teachers to do the same thing. So I'm really, really contemplating moving that forward as we get into next year, with speech in elementary. And I'm going to task Rick and the special ed central team with making more and more of that happen. But again, tonight's not webinars to discuss that. It's just something that I'm able to get off my chest here because I've been thinking about it a lot. So it's kind of like an anticipatory set, something that all good teachers do.
Do you have any idea of a deadline, or is there an idea of a deadline for completing third quarter work?
No, I don't have a deadline in mind. As I said at the beginning of this, I'm not going to hold myself or hold our district to any arbitrary deadlines because I'm not sure what the capability technologically or what the community can hold for those students to turn work in. So I'm not sure that everybody who needed to complete work has the capability to turn it in. So I'm going to probably hold it right till, if we're out till June, right till sometime in June.
Okay.
Yeah, the policy was close to that. And I know when I was the principal at the high school, which seems like 50 years ago now, we kind of set just to keep kids moving about a 3-week window, but I'm going to waive that. And I'm going to say by June so that I'll have some assurance that those kids that got incomplete and at least had the opportunity to do the work. And if I'm assured of that, then we'll clean that up before we do any kind of 40-week report card.
Okay. I'm making packets for my special ed students. Is there any way to tell who picked them up?
The schools, the principals have done a magnificent job calling along with counselors, social workers, PSAs. I was at Calthus Friday at Abbott, and I saw the lists that the principals had, and they were checking things off, and packets were in boxes that hadn't been picked up. I would say call your school principal or email your principal to find out. The other thing that I want to tell you is that tomorrow morning at 9:30, our driver extraordinaire, because he really is extraordinary, Mark Barone, is going to go to 10 schools. And he is going to pick up packets that have a student's name on them and their address. And Mark and some of our other laborers in ground school are going to deliver them to homes. They're literally going to take a box from Abbott and put it in their truck and go house to house like mail people and leave them on the front door, not go in, leave them on the front door, and the school will say your packet's there. We'll do that every week. We'll do that on Monday and Tuesday so that those packets that are sitting there that haven't been picked up, we can check off that we've delivered them. Or if a parent has requested that through a principal, we've delivered them. So that process starts tomorrow.
In terms of special education referrals, what will happen to those who had an initial eligibility meeting scheduled? Will the district move forward with that referral meeting?
Talking about that tomorrow with Ken, Cheryl, Kathy, and Franconi. If we feel that we have all of the necessary and required 92-154 paperwork in place to meet the federal and state mandates, and we can make the referral, make the recommendation to place a child in special ed or not, we'll set up a meeting. If someone from the committee, the teacher, the parent doesn't feel that there's enough information because they didn't get a chance to do screening A or social history B or what have you, we will delay those. It depends on the individual kid, where it is in the process, and what kind of data they have. So that's more for tomorrow's discussion. But there's the answer could be yes, the answer could be no, depending on the kid and the information that we have.
If summer school becomes an option, will Niagara Falls City School District be housing it?
Yes. If summer school becomes an option, it will be housed 6 through 12 at Niagara Falls High School this year. If things really turn around and summer school becomes an option for elementary, it will only be at Cataract. So the answer is yes. As I said earlier, with each passing day and week, elementary summer school becomes more difficult to conceive, and high school traditional summer school becomes more difficult to conceive, but we're still too premature to make that call.
If you had to guess, what is the probability of us returning to school with kids this year?
20%. 20%. I don't know, 10, I really, this is a personal guess. 10 to 20%. I don't see it. I mean, if all of a sudden we started to hit the bottom of this curve real quick, I think we still need 30 days to make sure it's all out of our system, not our system, out of the health system. So the question becomes, if that happens on May 15th or May 18th, which is a Monday, is it right to bring all kids back? Is it safe to bus them? Is it safe to have them eat in a classroom, a lunchroom? Is it safe to have them walk the halls of high school? Is it safe to have them wait out for a bus? You know, and what does that look like? So I think that with each passing day, we drop a percentage. And I think the 15th of May, I don't think there'll be any more extensions after this. He moved it to May 15th. What's he going to do next? Move it to June 1st? I think that's ridiculous. I think this is it. I think next time he comes out with an executive order, it's going to be to close school for the year and then look at summer school. I would say 15 to 20%, but that you asked me for a guess and I gave it to you. I would think that summer school is 50-50, and I would think that September is 80 yes, 20 no. How's that?
Okay.
That's my own head watching and reading. That's my head.
Okay. From a librarian, if school is not in session for the rest of the year, what are we going to do about library and textbooks that have been assigned, you know, the library books that have been checked out and so forth?
We'll have the school librarians come in. We'll get a list of those books. We'll have staff calling the families. We probably will have to have kids go to high school or middle school. If it's high school or middle school, we will have to have students go to their lockers in a very staggered, safe, socially distant way. What do I mean by that? I mean something like today it's A, B, and C in the morning, D, E, and F in the afternoon. The next day, so on and so forth. Here's a bin, put the library books in them. If you have it at home, bring it in and drop it off. We'll get a list, we'll have people call, and the mighty Mark Barone will be making more house deliveries to pick things up. That would be my guess right now. Those are public property that we own and that we need to collect. That's why, and I support this, and continue to support it. That's why we're not giving even consumable books to go home, because they are property of the district right now. If that 20% and we were to return, we'd want them. We'd want to get them back. We know there is some loss, but we're not ready to even unleash the consumables yet.
Okay, thank you. Raj?
You're welcome.
Will building-based subs have problems next year if we do not return this school year? Have positions, not problems. I'm sorry.
Yeah, building-based subs have no problems. They're doing great. That was Roger. That was you're an English teacher, Raj. You were too, right?
Yes,
You
I
were
was.
an English teacher.
Yes.
Your brother was the math teacher.
Yeah. Well,
Your brother was the math teacher.
he started out as English, believe it or not.
Listening to him speak, I'm shocked.
I'm going to tell him you said that. Thank you.
Please tell him I haven't seen him. I see his wife. She comes and subs here from time to time, but I haven't seen him. Tell him I said hello.
I will do that. Thank you.
No, we have so building-based subs. You know, that's our interview. Building-based subs and school-based subs. Those are your interviews right now. So no, well, I said that we're going to lose some positions by attrition, you know, by retirements. We're going to still need lots of teachers. You know, that's another sad part of this. We were really hitting our groove with, well, we were not hitting our groove. We were really starting to turn a corner with our, you know, people coming back into the teaching profession. I hope it picks back. I hope it stays that way. But we will, we're going to have openings. There are, gosh, at least 17 teaching retirements, even after we don't fill just a few. That's just a few. We will still need our BBSs and school-based subs to be our you know, I like the teaching assistants. And I like the PSAs, teaching assistants, BBSs. Those are the interviewers. They're doing their interview right now. That's what we tend to pick from, unless we can steal from other districts, which I also love to poach great teachers from other districts. I love doing that because you get high quality, veteran, skilled teachers that have been trained in other places and come in here and do a great job for us. So that does happen from time to time, but there will be openings for BBSs for sure. Let me say something to that end. Since we're not doing sister schools for 1 year, on our plan book, May still remains the voluntary transfer list. We'll certainly do it out of Miss Massaro's office, but we have to move forward with that, right? She has a big job of filling positions, signing contracts, putting people on personnel reports. The goal is to do that in May. Appoint as many people to the vacancies that we know we have in May for the board to vote in May and or June or the first meeting in July, so that everybody knows where they're at, so that we can prepare for September, especially during these times, you know? So, next.
AP students and seniors were allowed to clean out their lockers at Niagara Falls High School. Is there going to be time made for other students to clean out their lockers?
Yes. Yeah, but it won't be until later in May or June. And it will be very methodical and very socially distant, and it'll be very slow. But yeah, we'll let every student go back into the school one time to get everything as well. And teachers will have a chance to go back to tighten everything up, but we're too far away for that now to have a plan, but it's being contemplated. Just don't have dates for it.
Since Regents exams are canceled, should teachers be writing a local exam now for a Regents class to administer during Regents week if we return?
Right, Rick? I know. We haven't made, so I'm ready to jump and say no, but we haven't made that decision yet. I'd want to speak to our assessment office. I'd want to speak to Ms. Capone. I'd want to speak to principals. Please, if you're a teacher, do not write your own local exam right now. Most districts are not doing that. We'll make that part of our conversation with NFT, with our assessment office. My gut right now is to say no, don't do that. Brief. If you want to check for learning, brief, quick quizzes, brief, quick exit tickets, brief, quick checks for learning to make sure something's mastered are much more effective than a local assessment. Much more effective during these crisis times.
Okay. What is the plan for students who have internet and a device but have not turned in anything and do not turn in anything?
I mean, in terms of work?
Yeah, I think that's what you meant. Yes.
So let me give you my my position, but again, this still needs to be talked out, written out, and promoted. If we know that there's a student who has all of the tools at their disposal, but have chosen to do nothing, then I can't in good conscience give them a passing grade. But that's still got to be talked out and worked out. Like, we can't give someone credit for doing nothing as long as they've had everything at their disposal. Yeah. It also depends, you know, I mean, if we're talking about pre-K4, that's a different story. We're talking about a 6-year-old, that's a different story. We're talking about an 11th grader, that's a different story too. That's a much more harsh reality that you've been giving every advantage and you've done nothing with it. I can't in good conscience put something on your transcript that says that you've earned any credit. So the answer is no. If you're 6 years old and we think you have a computer in your house or a packet in your house and you didn't do anything, I got to talk to you, the teacher, and I got to talk to the principal. So it depends on it. This is going to be the ultimate in situational decision making. The ultimate. And I think it's beauty of why there will always be a need for educators. Because the easiest thing would be to put a plan there, have Ray write a program and stamp pass, fail, pass, fail, fail, pass, pass, pass. It's going to be a lot of human intuition, human understanding, human thought. That's why I love the job. And that's what we're all going to be called to do. Put our best thinking in for a developmentally appropriate decision at the right time.
Raj?
I'm asking a teacher who posed kind of an in-depth question I don't quite get. If this teacher would like to voice the question herself, I could turn her mic on. She hasn't responded to me. Generally, I don't know the full context. The issue isn't having one location for parents with respect to special area teachers. The problem is that the teacher has to spend time searching for the special area teacher activities every week, when really all she would need to do is link to the special teachers page from her website. So I'm really not sure the full context of that.
I think, Rick, you want to try it or?
It's in the OneNote.
So here's what I understand. Again, Rick, Ray, the team does more work on this than I do. I just kind of sit back and I don't know. I kind of take a nap most of the time when they're working on this. But here's what I understand. The special area materials are in the OneNote notebook by subject area, right?
By grade level.
By grade level. It's pulling a link onto the classroom teacher's page.
Yes.
And and if there is an area like music, art, phys ed that's not there, then we need to know about it, because I think we've checked every single one of them.
Yeah, they have to download it and post it.
You just download it and post it. Ray is putting in front of me the wonderful Rick said talented. I was going to say very long-winded Ed Maynard has a 4-step direction sheet that I'm reading here. Click on a colored tab for any subject. Notice the column next to the tabs. Look at the pages. We'll put that out there again, but the very long-winded Ed Maynard did this in 4 steps for us. So if Ed can condense something into 4 steps, that must not be that hard, because it usually takes him 20 minutes to tell me what time it is.
The teacher has agreed to, I can open her mic and she can maybe provide more context to this question than I was able to do, if you don't mind.
I don't want to take up too much time on this, Raj. Is there something specific we didn't answer?
Well, that's something maybe we could go back and forth and get look for some clarification for the next webinar.
I'd appreciate doing it that way.
Okay.
Thanks.
Question about cleaning out the students' desks if we don't get back to
Maid
school.
Brigade. No, we'll let the children go into their classrooms, take what they need to. Again, it's not going to be all 25 kids from Mrs. Haven's class. I just saw her name on the webinar. That's why I called her out. We're not going to have them all come in at one time. We'll have a very structured schedule. We'll let them go in, and then we'll have our cleaning crew in a appropriate way go in there and really disinfect and clean the desk out. That's down the line, though.
Is there a good chance that we're, if there's a good chance we're not returning this school year, is this the time to change the speech program and be prepared to effectively implement the program in September?
Probably not, but there's never a good time to do any of that stuff. Probably not. You know, we'll probably want to phase that in. I was just sharing my opinion there. That'll take teacher training. That'll take more collaborative work. I guess I grow more and more impatient as a professional about waiting to do things. Sometimes my opinion has been to just, if there's a good research-based idea or program that works, like co-teaching has worked, like our teachers have risen to the occasion, it can happen. September probably isn't the right time for that, though. The caller, I was going to say the caller, the writer's probably correct. I throw that out there just as something that's on my mind to share with you. We'll probably, September is going to be a time when we're really going to need to spend, if we returning the right way with rituals and routines and a lot of support. I just threw that out there, and I'm glad I did, so that we can get people thinking a little bit. Because I don't think just because we're not seeing each other every day that we're not supposed to be thinking about ways to do things better. I think we always have to think about ways to do things better. And again, it was all predicated on the fact that I just am so proud of our co-teaching, so proud of it. So that's the reason I threw it out there.
Okay. Many of the special area plans need to be renamed before linking to the web page. Can special area teachers' plans at least be saved under an appropriate title so we do not have to rename them?
You can contact Leah, sorry.
Okay, hang on. Rick, go ahead.
If there's an issue with any of the lesson plans that are in the OneNote notebook under those tabs, for art and music, you can contact Leah Baldessari, and for physical education, John Briglio.
Okay. That's a good way to direct those questions. Go right to the source of the coordinator that we had put them together. Leah for music and art.
Yes.
John for PE.
Right.
Good.
Thank you.
Good answer, Rick.
Will associates come back in the buildings in June to help close up the classrooms if the teachers don't return?
Oh, sure. Yes. If necessary, yes. Again, the plan will be as few people as possible, as socially distant as possible. But yes, our associates are being paid. They'll come in and they'll work through it. Yep. The answer is yes.
Okay. Does a socially distant annual review schedule exist? Is it being done on a school basis or a district-wide basis?
It's being done on a school basis with the central CSE supporting the school psychologists to do it. It's school and the principal. Gosh, the administrators, I asked the administrators in my Thursday call. So we're having administrator meetings every Thursday via Office 365. Well, that was one of their tasks, to get a really good handle on where they were with annual reviews in a socially distant way. I heard from one of our bigger elementary schools that it was going well, and there was just one parent that they couldn't reach. It's a school matter. It's a principal, school psychologist lead.
What do we do about primary students whose parents have not been getting back in touch with the teachers or the school? Teachers do not know if these students are doing the work or picking it up, and they have used Remind and phone calls, etc., with no success.
Have a constant communication stream with your administrator.
Counselors and deans are helping.
The counselors and deans, I looked at one school's list. Again, one of our larger elementary school, the principal gave me a report on Friday, which was great. Told me just how many, and this was for the whole school, it wasn't primary only, but how many kids they just have not had any kind of consistent communication with. But they're using their PSA, their dean, their principal, assistant principal, and their counselor and social worker to go out and make those calls and to make that outreach from the school. So I would, if you're finding that teacher, if a teacher is finding that, please drop your principal the email.
Here's an interesting one. If we don't go back, could we have a day when teachers stand by the school socially distant and give parents a chance to drive by with the kids and wave to the teachers?
Sounds like a great idea. Sounds like a really great idea. Yeah. Those are the nice ideas that come a couple weeks from now. If we know we're not going to be back, We'll make a repository of things like that. I wouldn't force every school to do it,
Mhm.
but I would also allow the school. I mean, I think this is a good decentralized decision. So if school X would want to do that, and then all the other schools thought it was great, go for it. I wouldn't mandate it. I would just say, hey, here's 20 ideas that, and we'll have to create this repository. Here's 20 ideas that we're saying to put up closure on a school year. I'm a big closure guy. Like, I like try to start things and close things. I'm a check off the list guy. I get mad when I don't have everything checked off, and you know how I can be sometimes. So I think closure is necessary, and that's a great idea to promote closure. But I'll leave that to the school to do.
Okay. Are there any others, Raj?
Just the really big request
Yeah, boy.
we have not relayed yet.
Go ahead, Raj. I'm afraid. I'm
A raise
afraid.
for you two?
I'm afraid.
Well,
Is it a raise for the two of you?
No, no, no.
Oh, God.
No, we're really happy, but
Paying them anymore. The district's broke.
yeah.
the request has been made in a couple of formats here. What is the probability of Mr. Laurie ending the meeting tonight by singing "Lean on Me," and we can all sing along at home? He checked
Very,
the
very,
NMT
very-
if it doesn't breach
The-
contract law.
The probability is very minimal. Very minimal
But it
that's going to
exists.
occur.
Okay.
It exists. I mean, if history's taught us anything, nothing's impossible.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Two personal things. One, I'm in desperate need of a haircut. So if someone knows an underground barber, Bucky's unfortunately is closed. I'm up for underground barbering information. It's driving me crazy. That's number one. And number two, no matter what happens, I'm going to be home tonight by 9 o'clock to watch the ESPN Michael Jordan special. It's a 10-part series, and it tracks the Chicago Bulls in the 90s when they won 6 basketball championships, and they go inside the locker room. And I've been waiting for this. It wasn't supposed to come out till June, but they're going to air the first 2 episodes tonight and then every Sunday night. And I am not going to miss it because I've heard and read a lot. I read the book about it, and I've read a lot of interesting things about it. So there's a better chance that that's going to happen.
Okay.
There's one more here on
One more.
more serious note. Do we have a plan for our life skills students moving forward?
In terms of going to the next grade, to the next age, like, I'm not sure about our life skills kids are really super important. So a couple comments about life skills, and then we'll close this out. One of the things that I feel really terrible about is that we weren't able to have a unified basketball season. Our life skills basketball team were section champions last year. Section champions for the whole division. Probably, looking at some of our spring coaches, I know my son played for the baseball coach, and there was no chance he'd win a championship. But our life skills team, they won a championship. And I'm really seriously, I feel terrible. It was one of the best things this district has done. I'm not taking credit for it. You give credit for teachers at the high school who did the life skills, and they were and the Special Olympics. I think that got taken away during this. Those are wonderful things. Now, many of our life skills kids stay with us until they're 21. And the letter that the parent wrote me that I read at the beginning of this, one of her children is in life skills, and the teacher has been going by with handmade materials and dropping them off at the child's house. And I saw a video of a relative who's sitting next to me's daughter having a communication with her unified partner champion. So our life skills kids are some of the biggest superstars in our district, and we'll do anything we can to honor them and support them and bring them things. We've got exceptional teachers there. And just I'm getting back to the serious here. Well, I was saying we're not filling all of our vacancies. We are hiring 2 more special education teachers because these are very primary autistic children. I'm talking about kindergartners and first graders age. And I want those children to stay in their district. So you'll see 2 additional 6-to-1 and 8-to-1 to 2 classes come back to our district to stay where their peers are. That's very important to us, very important to me personally. And we'll do anything we can for our life skills kids, especially keep them at home in their district where they should be. So I'm really pleased that our children with autism are able to celebrate and be a big part of our district. So to that I say, lean on me when I'm not strong. What's the next verse? Lean on when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I hope you care. I'll help you. Rick is giving me the words. I'll help you carry on. It won't be long. Somebody to lean on. You just might. I can't believe I don't even know the words. I've heard that about 300 times in the last year. I can't remember the words. Now, if you gave me a, let's see, if you gave me a Billy Joel song or a Pink song, I could nail it next week. All right. So let's keep leaning on each other.
Okay.
Let's keep leaning on our best practices and leaning on our common sense and supporting one another as we go forward. Thank you all for another good night, and we will be back tomorrow. Be safe, be calm, please, be patient, and take care of yourselves, okay?
Well, thank you again, Mr. Lurie. And again, don't forget,
My pleasure.
in 1 hour, there will be a thank you email, and inside is a question survey, and you can put any questions or concerns that you have that haven't been answered, and we'll get them to Mr. Lurie. And with that, Raj, any final statements?
No, I'm putting together my playlist for next week. And,
Raj, I have you for a country and western. Are you country and western, Roger?
I straddle several worlds in the world of music.
Yeah.
Country western is one of them. Yes.
That is my please, that is my kryptonite. I do not like country and western. Sorry, everybody.
Okay.
Sorry. I just don't.
Okay. Oh boy, you ought to see the things coming in. No, they're not.
I bet. Be honest.
No, I know. Hey, anyhow, thank you very much. And people joining us, don't forget tomorrow we will be putting out the schedule of the webinars for the websites for the week. Please check, and we hope you'll join us for those. And with that, good night, everybody.
Yes. Stay safe, please.